Welcome! Today I will explain you how Russia was created, how this huge, biggest country in the world was created from the beginning, from the scratch. This history is quite complicated, but I will do my best to explain you in details how step by step this country was built through centuries. And I will tell you also, thus Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, is part of the Russian Empire, or Russia didn't have any rights to claim Kiev as its own. At first, I would like to introduce you the very beginning of Russia. It was 9th century when Rurik, Swedish Viking, invaded northern territory of today's Russia, region of Novgorod the Great, and he conquered this territory with his sons and his brothers. And then Rurik dynasty conquered also southern territories, Kiev for example, and they united this whole land, and the country was called Kievan Russia. Kievan Russia was a very big country combining a lot of tribes, lot of ethnicities, and also lot of cultures. For example, the main core, let's say, component of this country were Slavic tribes living there from centuries, but also in the north there were a lot of Ugrophin tribes that today are living in Finland. In the west they were Baltic tribes like Lithuanians and Prussians. In the south and in the east there were also a lot of Turkish tribes. Kiev, for example, was a Turkish outpost in the 8th and 9th century. Turkish Khazars, great Khazar empire was built on the steppe in this time. They created Kiev to trade with Slavic tribes, to exchange furs, swords, amber, salt, and slaves, of course, because Khazars were very passionate about slave trade. So it was a mix of a lot of ethnicities and also mix of cultures, because there was Slavic culture, there were Scandinavian, Nordic culture brought by the Rurik dynasty and with their Viking warriors. There were also Byzantine culture from the south, where they traveled a lot, and Byzantine Empire was a very light beacon shining with great Greek culture. So Russia was also adapting a lot of this culture from Constantinople. So we have this Kievan Rus, which was very strong country in 9th, 11th century. They were invading south Constantinople. They were trying to sack Constantinople multiple times, but they were unable to do it. For more details about history of Kievan Rus, visit my other movie where I describe all this history. But Yarislav, or Yaroslav the Wise, the Kievan Russian prince that died in 1054, left his country to all his sons. He divided the country among them, and he started great split of Kievan Russia. This split lasts for almost 2 centuries, but in the 13th century Mongols from the Far East came and saw that Russia is very rich but divided country. They fought Russians near Kauka river. They won a decisive victory, and then after several years, they come back and conquer whole Russia. And then, for another centuries, almost all Russian lands were subdued to Mongols, and they created very big empire called the Golden Horde. The Golden Horde was a Mongolic and Turkish country that was spreading from the Poland in the west to today Kazakhstan in the east, and their vassal territories were even as far as Novgorod and Moskva in the north, and they had their south border on the Caucasus Mountains. So it was great with territory country, and the Kievan Russia was in fact destroyed at 6th December 1240 when Batu Khan conquered Kiev and ended the Kievan Russia history. But of course, Rurikovich family didn't disappear, and Russians didn't disappear. This Slavic people all lived there for the next centuries. And there was a prince called Alexander Nevsky. Alexander Nevsky won a battle against Swedish invaders and become a Russian hero, but also he was a vassal to the Mongols because no one could oppose them in this time, in 13th century. And he had a son. His son name was Daniel, and he had several sons, but he wanted all of them to have some territories, to have some duchy. So he gave Daniel Moscow. Moscow, that was very far to the east, was very poor, was located on a swampy, very dense forest territory with a lot of savage tribes. They were not even Slavic tribes, they were Agro-Finnic tribes with some Slavic people living there. And this small territory around Moscow will emerge to become the biggest country in the world. Listen how it happened. Mongols also realize that this far north and east located Moscow is too far for them to conquer it, because going there to pacify this prince, this small prince, Danilo Alexandrovich, is very inconvenient. So they made princes of Moscow as their main tribute collectors, because Golden Horde Hans were collecting annual tribute from all Russian territories. So it was convenient for them that Moscow will do this for them, so they don't have to go as far north to do it for themselves. So Danilo Alexandrovich was a puppet in the Mongolian hands, and even his son George was so close to the Mongols that he married sister of Great Khan Uzbek. Great Khan Uzbek was the leader of the Golden Horde in the first half of 13th century, when the Golden Horde was very powerful, and George, being a relative to Khan Uzbek, was very powerful among other Russians, and he collected tribute for them. After George, the Prince of Moscow is Ivan, called Ivan the Moneybag or the Sack, because he was very rich. Collecting the tribute made him enormously rich, and more, he lended money to other princes, and if they cannot repay the debt, he took their lands. So he enlarged the Moscovian princehood very much, and when he died, Moscow was a really strong territory, really strong state among all the Russian principalities. After Ivan the Moneybag, we have very important events that will turn the situation in Eastern Europe for another century. The main event is the Black Death that spread among the steppe and weakened the Golden Horde. Then, after the Black Death, there's a great chaos in the Golden Horde. They fight among each other, and for the 25 years there is no single powerful Han who can collect them and make them strong again. So the situation was very well played by Lithuanians. Lithuanians who in 14th century conquered most of the former Russian principalities and took them from the Mongols. But Mongols were unable to fight back Lithuanians. They tried in 1362, but they failed. They failed great battle with Lithuanians, and it was a sign of the changing times that Mongolian horde, the Golden Horde, is no longer the supreme power in Eastern Europe, and now Lithuania will come to be the most important power. But still, Moscow is far to the east, and Lithuania cannot reach so far. But we'll try. We'll try to ride also Moscow. So another Moscow prince, Dmitry, will build Kremlin. Kremlin was a fortress to defend from Lithuanian raids. Dmitry also tried to fight Mongolians, seeing that they are very weak in this time. So he said he will not pay the tribute. So they sent a punitive expedition, and he won the battle. And then Mamai, the handmaker of the Golden Horde, will send a great army in 1380 to conquer Dmitry. And Dmitry will fight them on Kulikowe Pole. There will be a great battle in which Dmitry will be able to win with the Golden Horde and become the Russian hero called Dmitry Doński, because this Kulikowe Pole was south to Don River. But nevertheless, Dmitry was happy for only 2 years. After 2 years, new king called Tokhtamysh will rule the Golden Horde. Tokhtamysh will be very strong Khan, and he will lead his army north to punish Dmitry. And in 1382, Moscow will be conquered, and Dmitry will be punished for the trying to throw off the Mongolian supremacy. But it was the first sign that Russia could win with Mongols. After Dmitr's death, also Golden Horde has a lot of troubles, because Great Khan from the Central Asia called Tamerlane, or Timur the Lame, will conquer Golden Horde, so they will be weakened and Moscow could rise to power again. But now we have great power of Lithuania, who is trying to conquer the Mongols. And Lithuanians, with their new prince Jagiełło, who is coming to be the Polish king known as Władysław Jagiełło, they are trying to conquer Moscow but unfortunately they didn't achieve this goal because they lose a battle in 1399 on Vorskla river. It's south to the Kiev, when the horde won a decisive battle against them, so they're unable to conquer Moscow in the beginning of 15th century. Also, Jagiellonian dynasty emerging in Poland and the union between Poland and Lithuania made Lithuanians to look more to the west, to the Teutonic Order, which is a big problem for them, to the Burgundy, which is big problem for Poland. So they left a little bit the east. And this is 15th century. 15th century, when Russia is left for herself alone. In the south we have very weak Golden Horde, splitted in smaller parts after the death of Tokhtamysh and invasion of Tamerlan. We have strong Lithuania, but focused in the west, and they can easily emerge to become bigger and bigger. And they also fortunate because they have good leaders. For example, Ivan III, Ivan called Ivan the Great. Ivan the Great was ruling almost 50 years. He died in 1505, and he increased the territory of Moscow very significantly. He conquered some territories in the south, some territories in the west. He conquered Novgorod, and Russia in 1505 was really strong country, not so strong as Lithuania, but becoming more and more strong. And after Ivan III, that were Ivan IV, Ivan called the Terrible, and he also strengthened the Russian state. But also the very important factor in identity of Russia was the fall of Byzantine Empire in 1453. Last emperor gave his daughter as a wife to Ivan the Great, and they realize that they are inheritants of the tradition of Great Byzantine Empire. They called the Moscow is the third Rome. The first Rome was of course Rome, the second was Constantinople, and the third Rome was Moscow. And now they claim that they are masters of all Russia, and they will unite all Russian territories under their banner. This was a very important factor in their ideology, because for the coming centuries, Russian, in fact, Moscow princes, who are now called the Tsars or emperors of Russia, will call themselves the rulers of all Russians. And then they will try to reclaim the territories that Lithuania took from Mongols in 13th and mostly 14th century. But after Ivan the Terrible, there is his son Fyodor, and Fyodor is very weak and dies soon. So the Rurikovich dynasty in Moscow ended on Fyodor, and became a time of terrible chaos when there is fighting among boyars. Boyars is a name for Russian aristocracy. They were fighting among themselves to see which one will be the new ruler of Moscow. And of course, Poland took advantage, and they invaded Russia. They took Moscow, they took Kremlin in 1610, and they wanted Polish prince Władysław IV Vasa, because Zygmunt was the Polish king, Zygmunt Vasa, the Swedish dynasty. He was the Polish king and he wanted his son to become a Russian prince. And it was very close. It was very close that Władysław IV would be the new Russian Tsar, and after his father's death, these three great countries would be united. Poland, Lithuania, and Russia could be united under Władysław IV. But boyars thought that he had to abandon Christian Catholicism and he must become an Orthodox Christian. And he refused. So they said no, he cannot be our Tsar, he cannot be our emperor if he cannot take Orthodox Christianity as his own. You can think thus it was stupid or not, but in fact, few years later, Mikhail Romanov will become the new ruler of Moscow, and he will start new Romanov dynasty, the dynasty that will lead the Russians for another 300 years. And in 17th century, Russia is becoming the very strong country in the East Europe. They conquered a lot of territories to the south. The territories gave them access to Cossacks. Cossacks was very warlike people living in the south that were used by the Tsars to conquer East, for example. And for another 100 years, they conquered all Siberia to the Pacific Ocean. So in the 18th century, Russia is spreading from the Smolensk and Kiev in the west. In this time, Kiev is Polish, but okay. And they spread all along to the Pacific in the east. When Poland is becoming weaker and weaker in 18th century, Russia took advantage of it and conquered a lot of territories in the west. So in the 19th century, when Poland disappears completely from the map because it's conquered by the Germans and from the Russians, Russia took territories to the west as far as Warsaw. So they created great empire spreading from Warsaw in the west to Vladivostok in the east. Thousands of kilometers, and as you know, this empire will fall when Romanov dynasty will be killed by the revolution. Then the Soviets will come to power in 20th century, and the Soviets will ally with the Germans in the Second World War. They will conquer Poland, and in few years Germans will attack Soviets. They will try to conquer Moscow, but will not be able to do it. Finally, Germans lose the war against Russia. Russians took west as far as Berlin, as far as Vienna, as far as München, and the Great Soviet Union under Stalin is created. And then this great country split in 1991, and then we have modern Russia that is only a part of the former Great Soviet Empire, but with ambitions to take the world again. But as we can see, they cannot even conquer Ukraine, so we can be safe that Russia is not able to take over the world right now. I think the much more powerful is China right now than Russia. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this speech and it gave you a lot of knowledge about the origins of Russia, how this great state was created. I was trying to be brief, but this history, as you can see, is very, very long and complicated. Please let me know in the comments what else would you like to know about East European history. I would love to share it with you. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.